Many gardeners believe they're nurturing their soil in raised beds, but actually what's happening is a slow sterilization of that very soil. Most gardeners think they're feeding the soil in their raised beds. In reality, they're slowly sterilizing it. And the first thing to disappear isn't your tomatoes, it's your earthworms. Once the worms are gone, structure collapses, drainage suffers, nutrient cycling slows down, and you're suddenly dependent on inputs just to keep plants alive. I've seen this over and over in backyard beds that looked rich on the surface but were biologically dead 6 inches down. If you care about real results, not just green leaves, you need to stop killing the workforce under your feet. And before we go deeper, if you're serious about growing better food through better soil, subscribe to the channel now. We talk practical systems here, not trends. Earthworms are not a side detail, they're the engine. Let's start with the biggest mistake I see. Now, temperature plays a huge role in composting, especially when earthworms are involved. If things get too hot, well, the whole process can go sideways. It's really important to monitor your compost pile and make sure it stays in that sweet spot, not too hot and not too cold, so your worms can thrive and do their job properly. You're overheating your compost and cooking your worms without realizing it. A hot compost pile should hit between 130 and 150 degrees Fahrenheit to kill pathogens and weed seeds. That's fine in a pile. It is not fine inside a finished raised bed. I've measured beds climbing past 160 degrees because someone buried half-finished manure compost directly into the planting zone. That temperature will absolutely kill worms and most beneficial fungi. If you're building compost for raised beds, monitor the core temperature. I use the 36-inch stem thermometer from RioTemp because it actually reaches the center of large piles and doesn't bend when you push into dense material. The dial reads both Fahrenheit and Celsius, which really matters if you're tracking precise ranges. The link is in the description if you want to check it out. I'm not interested in gimmicks. I just need tools that survive real composting. Once your compost has peaked and cooled below 90 degrees consistently, then it's safe to incorporate into beds. If it's still hot in the core, it's not ready. Period. Water, salts, and disturbance all play a part in how your compost matures. Too much water can drown the microbes, while too little can slow everything down. Salts can build up if you're adding things like manure or certain kitchen scraps, so it's good to keep an eye on that. And, disturbing or turning the pile helps introduce oxygen, which speeds up the process. Balance is key, just like with most things in gardening. You're flooding your beds and creating anaerobic conditions. Worms need oxygen as much as they need moisture. Raised beds that are watered every single day, especially with poor drainage mixes, become compacted and anaerobic. That's when you start smelling that sour, swampy odor. Worms leave or die. In a 4 by 8 foot raised bed that's 12 inches deep, you're holding roughly 32 cubic feet of soil. That mass does not need daily saturation unless you're in extreme heat. Instead, water deeply enough to moisten the top 6 to 8 inches, then allow the surface to dry slightly before watering again. I aim for soil that feels like a wrung-out sponge at 4 inches down. If you're running drip irrigation, cut the frequency and increase duration. 2 deep waterings per week beat 7 shallow ones every time. Now, let's talk a bit about fertilizers and soil management. Healthy soil is, honestly, the foundation of any successful garden. I always recommend using compost or well-rotted manure to boost soil fertility naturally. Avoid over-fertilizing, as too much can actually harm your plants and the environment. Instead, feed your soil regularly and keep an eye on plant health, adjusting your approach as needed. Remember, good soil management is really a long-term investment in your garden's future. So, you're using synthetic fertilizers, like they're harmless. Salt-based fertilizers spike nutrient levels fast, but honestly, they also increase soil salinity. Worms are extremely sensitive to salt buildup, and that's something you really need to watch out for. You're disturbing the soil too aggressively. Double digging and deep tilling inside raised beds, well, that just destroys worm tunnels. It's easy to overlook, but those tunnels are pretty crucial for healthy soil. In established beds, I no longer till deeper than 2 to 3 inches. I broadfork once a year if compaction becomes visible, but I do not flip layers. It's a simple change, but it really helps keep the soil structure intact. Always keep beds either planted or mulched. A 2-inch layer of shredded leaves, straw, or partially decomposed wood chips keeps the moisture and temperature stable. So, just to wrap things up, remember these key principles. Keep your soil covered, pay attention to moisture, and don't forget about pH. Sustainable gardening is really about observation and small, steady improvements. With a bit of patience and care, you'll see your garden thrive season after season. You're ignoring pH drift. Worms prefer a pH between 6.0 and 7.5. Test your soil once a year. Don't guess. Adjust gradually. So, if you're adding fresh manure directly into your beds, here's something you should know. Fresh poultry or cattle manure actually generates ammonia during decomposition, and, well, that ammonia is lethal to worms. You're compacting the beds by leaning and stepping on them. If your beds are wider than 4 feet and you can't reach the center without stepping in, it's probably time to redesign them. The goal isn't to baby worms. The real aim is to build a soil system that functions without constant correction. If this video helped you rethink how you're managing your raised beds, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and share this with another grower. Practical knowledge builds resilient gardens.